We tend to think of war as this ancient, inevitable part of who we are, but what if that's not the whole story? What if, for most of our history, we didn't have war, at least not like we know it today? Let's dig into how humanity actually had to invent it.
So what is the line? What takes a brawl between two groups, just a chaotic, messy fight, and completely transforms it into the calculated, organized machine that we call war?
And right here, this is the crucial distinction. See, organized warfare isn't just random violence. It's a system. It's force, sponsored by a state, used to achieve political goals. It involves stuff that would have been totally alien to early humans, like trained armies, command structures, and actual strategy. So you got to think of it less like a primal instinct and more like an invention, just like the wheel or writing.
So, if it's an invention, you have to ask, where did the motivation, the fuel for this thing come from? Well, it all starts with one of the biggest changes in human history, the birth of kingdoms.
Just look at how fast this all happened. For tens of thousands of years, humans were nomadic hunter-gatherers. Then, in what is basically the blink of an eye in historical terms, we go from the very first farms to the very first kingdoms. That incredible acceleration created a whole new set of problems. And those problems? Well, they demanded a new and much, much more violent solution.
And here's how it all connects, step by step. Agriculture gives us something brand new, a surplus. More food than we need just to survive. That surplus lets people gather together in cities. But, and here's the catch, all that wealth, all the grain, the livestock, it basically becomes a giant target. For the first time in history, you have something that's worth stealing on a massive scale. So, rulers emerge to protect it all.
Okay, so now kingdoms have stuff to protect and big goals to achieve. But they need a tool to get it done. They need a machine. And so, it was time to forge the first armies.
And this right here, this is the revolution. Before this, any conflict involved part-time fighters, right? Farmers who would pick up a tool to defend their village when needed. The new model was the professional soldier. This wasn't a side gig, it was their entire job. They trained year-round, they used weapons issued by the state, and their loyalty? It shifted from their family or their clan to some distant king or the idea of a state. And that idea? Wow, that changed absolutely everything.
So what makes this new machine actually work? It's all about the organization. You've got a clear chain of command, so orders get followed. You have standardized training, which means everyone moves and fights as one unit. State-funded logistics are absolutely essential. An army, like they say, marches on its stomach. And finally, you get this sense of collective identity, forged by discipline, that holds the whole thing together under incredible pressure.
So you've got the soldiers, the machine is built. Now, what do you put in their hands? The invention of war wasn't just about organizing people, it was a massive technological revolution too.
The absolute game changer here was metal, specifically bronze. All of a sudden, you could mass-produce weapons that were standardized, durable, and way deadlier than anything made of stone or wood. For the very first time, it was possible for a state to properly arm itself.
And this gave rise to the first real military arsenals. We're talking bronze-tipped spears designed specifically for fighting in formation, swords like the curved kopis, and big, standardized shields made to create a literal wall of men. But the real shock and awe weapon of its day? The war chariot. I mean, this thing was the ancient world's version of a tank. It was fast, it was terrifying, and it was a symbol of the state's incredible power. Okay, so we've got the fuel, we've got the machine, and we have the tools. But there's one final, absolutely crucial piece to this puzzle. The art of strategy. It's not just about having an army, it's about how you use it. The core idea here was pretty simple, but it was profound. A disciplined block of soldiers all fighting as one single unit is way more powerful than a chaotic mob of brilliant individual warriors. The power literally shifted from the lone hero to the collective, the phalanx. And the contrast is just stark. Old-style fighting was total chaos, just a bunch of individual duels that relied on personal bravery. A force like that could shatter and run in an instant. The new structured strategy, though, was all about discipline. Units moved in coordination, they could take losses without breaking the line, and they could pull off complex maneuvers. It basically turned battle from a messy brawl into a deadly game of chess.
And this whole new way of thinking is just perfectly captured by this idea. The supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. It shows the complete shift in mindset, right? Victory was no longer just about killing the other guy. It was about achieving a political goal through the careful application of force, or maybe even just the threat of force.
So, the invention was complete. All the pieces were finally in place. And its impact? Well, its impact would completely remake the world.
And this is the great and terrible legacy. For thousands of years, organized warfare became the primary engine of history. It built empires and it shattered them. It drew the very lines on our maps. And ironically, it drove incredible technological innovation in everything from metallurgy to medicine. In a very real way, civilization and organized war grew up together, hand in hand.
So, a few thousand years ago, humanity created this incredibly powerful, world-changing institution pretty much from scratch, which leaves us with one final and pretty unsettling question. Now that we've invented war, can we ever possibly uninvent it?